Occupancy rate on my street went down, and people wanted to live closer to the urban core than farther away.
So there's the answer. Raise gas prices.
Try getting elected on that platform.
I know you figured it out.
We started out talking about, mentioning at least, if not talking in a detailed way about the 2020 census. My understanding of what the 2010 census will likely reveal about our region is that we have lost thousands more since 2000, that the city of Cleveland will be somewhere probably under 420,000, maybe even below, maybe closer to 410. And the population of the rest of Cuyahoga County and probably the rest of Northeast Ohio is for the most part dropping, except for, I think, Medina County. I might be, and certain pockets. At any rate, is it possible to imagine that in 2020 we will see that trend is reversed without the cataclysmic global warming that David Beach laid out at the beginning?
Only tongue in cheek. I don't advocate.
He doesn't really advocate that. Let's be clear. But Bob, we'll get to you in a second. I want to hear from Wendy first.
I don't think it will be reversed. I'd be pretty happy if it had slowed down significantly and you saw some greater amount of change now. What might happen in 2020, I don't think we need to wait till the cataclysmic aspects of climate change. I think, again, I'm going to say it, that water is going to set a lot of things in motion. Many of those communities that rely on water in other parts of the country are already investigating desalination, already putting in conservation programs in place. And if they're successful, that will be a very good thing for them all. But if they're not as successful, I think you will see that water is going to be an important part of what this region has to offer. And now that we know that we're not going to ship, hopefully, massive quantities of water outside of the Great Lakes region, I think that we might see some support there in terms of making people aware that cities need water again, and we can build on the water economy and really make this place attractive for people coming from other parts of the country. So I don't think it'll completely reverse, but I think there will be a change if we keep working.
Olivia.
I was just going to say that I think, I don't know if it will be reversed either, it may have stabilized by 2020, but I do think that there's a growing consciousness, we see it in other parts of the state, that the fate of the core city is also the fate of the region. And I might respectfully beg to differ with Bob that I think actually there are many suburbanites are beginning to see that, and we have actually commissioned some studies that show the interconnections of the regional economies, and I think that in itself will, I think, start to help stabilize the region.
Are there any municipalities you want to hold up as a model?
I don't think so.
Not yet. Bob, go ahead.
Our regional population really has not significantly grown in decades. And we know that the population of the city of Cleveland has been in decline since probably the 20s. 1930 decennial was probably the last time that we had any growth in the city of Cleveland in terms of raw population from decennial to decennial. But there was a period of time in the 1980s where the call to action by Mayor White to aggregate the resources of the community development movement to build new housing in the city changed the tectonic plates of the regional housing market, where it was all-out migration and absolutely no or very, very, very little new development within the city of Cleveland, to where the city steadily gained and finally got to about 10% of the new product that year in and year out was produced in the regional housing market. And that slowed the population decline significantly to where between the 80 and 90 decennial, our community lost more population, or lost less population than in any other decennial since the 20s to 1930. And
that's
my
great,
contention is that another clarion call that's well executed maybe it is the reimagining Cleveland can slow the dynamic of the region to the point where things are better for the city of Cleveland and not just...
But it would be a very
precipitous
different clarion call, because my suspicion is that it's not going to come from a lot of new housing starts.
Surely will not in this kind of climate,
Okay.
I grant you.
Andrew?
I don't know, but there's a gentleman named Larry Bender. He runs the Workforce Investment Board in this region. And he told me that there's a significant underground of people who don't report in the census. They've just fallen off the map. I lose my job, so I move in with my mom or my dad or my cousin or my sister. And when the census comes to the house, we don't count everybody in the house. And so I think we have some systemic issues of foreclosure issues that are forcing people to aggregate into homes where there might be 9 or 10 people in a home, but we count 3. So I think we need to get out to census, and people need to understand the impact of not reporting the census, because if we don't report, then it impacts our funding. So I think I don't know if it'll come back, but I think there's a tremendous underground of people who don't report in the census, quite frankly. And I think it's a 6-digit, it's big. It's 100,000 people number.
David?
Lewis Mumford, the writer on cities, had a phrase that trend is not destiny. And I think that a lot of our planning these days for transportation and other things uses a forecasting method where we forecast the trends and just sort of blindly follow them and invest so that we produce what we think the trend is going to move towards, and sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy. Instead of forecasting, we should be doing backcasting. We should be setting a goal and then developing a strategic plan that will help us reach that goal. And our goal should be to repopulate the city of Cleveland, revitalize the urban core, and it's up to all of us to put a stake in the ground and to change our policies, our investments, elect people that are going to do that, change our planning system to make sure that happens. It's within our will to do that, and it's up to us.
I'm going to get the figures all wrong, but I think it was last week I heard that from 1950 to now, the city of Istanbul has maybe increased in population tenfold. And in that same time, the population in Northeast Ohio has been steadily declining, and the population in Cleveland proper has halved. So and it made me wonder, why we have a great place here. Why aren't there more people here? Why? What does Istanbul have that we don't? Jobs, I think, is part of the answer. Bob, last point, and then I'm getting the signal from Kathy that we got to wrap.
I was just going to back up David's notion. I think our community ought to re-examine a document called the 7-County Transportation Study that was done in the 1960s, that was the underpinning planning document for the interstate highway system. The projections of the population growth of Northeast Ohio would be a comedy if examined in today's light of what actually happened. They were so over-the-top optimistic. We were going to have probably a population in the city of Cleveland well over 1 million people. And the city of Parma was going to be at about 150,000. And Euclid was going to be at about 130,000. And you could go around the horn, and everything was double and triple over what has actually occurred today. And that's the underpinning and the basis for the projection that built the interstate highway system that sucked a lot of the demand out of the city and made longer commutes within the same time frame possible within the region. And so I think we have to be really careful about the use of numbers and not accept projections. I think David is right on the money about using the Mumford comment.
Okay. I think that basically wraps this portion of the forum. Please, before I welcome Kathy Hexter back up here for the next stage, please a round of applause for Wendy and Bob and Andrew and Livia and Dave.